Thank you everyone for joining us on YouTube. Today we are painting on heavyweight Crescent watercolor board, and we're painting a seascape, and this is copying the first painting that I ever painted with my teacher, Evelyn Wright. So the original painting is 16 by 20. I'm going to be working on an 8 by 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is just wet the sky. And I'm going to use a flat brush. So this is just watercolor paper that's been glued down to a thick mat board. There's nothing really exciting about it. And it's fairly smooth, but it lifts. We'll see how well it lifts as we paint today. So I would like to put some of this orange color into the sky. I don't know if it's a sunrise or a sunset. I guess it depends on what coast. If it's the West Coast, it's a sunset. And the way that I like to paint sunsets, I'm going to try to show more of that painting. There it is I start with raw sienna. This is kind of almost the only time I use raw sienna anymore is when I'm doing a sunrise or a sunset. I'm not going to use much, but the trick to the raw sienna is that it has to be worked on the palette. If you have any little clumps, it's going to make big old yucky streaks on your paper. So I'm just putting it into the wet sky, brushing across. Now I'm going to use permanent rose. I'm going to mix it into the raw sienna, and I'm going to make kind of a salmon color, pinkish color, and I'm going to brush that right into that raw sienna. And while I have that much in my brush, I'm just going to put a little bit down here in the water, because there would be a little bit of reflection in the water if it were that orange of a sunset. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some blue to the top of that sky. I'm going to start with Antwerp. I'm going to use both Antwerp and French ultramarine blue in the water. Boy, I just really soaked up the water and seems like it's kind of drying fast. The trick to a good sky is to not overwork it and to leave a little white up there in those kind of the clouds, which I didn't do on this one, but I'm going to lift and see if I can just lift up a little white. Once again, I don't have the good paper towels. Well, I'm just going to stop because it's going to only get worse from there. While my sky is still damp, I'm going to mix up some brown paint, burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue, I'll put a tiny bit of permanent rose into it so it has a little bit of a warm, it's basically a warm gray. It's very pale. And I'm going to put in, well, it's this purple layer of mountains, but I'm going to put it in softer and not purple. That's going to start about here. I'm just taking it down to my horizon line, and it's damp, so it's like looking out over San Francisco, and you can see you can see up to Marin. It's just soft out there. It's blurring. I like that. I'm going to make each layer of mountains darker as I come forward. My next step is to add this second set of mountains right here that I'm pointing to with my pencil. This is a painting that I did on cold press. Can't remember if I did it last night or this morning. And I'm going to add this mountain right here that I'm pointing to. So the colors are French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I just said the other opposite color that I was touching. So burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue. I'm trying to make this darker than the one I just painted. So more pigment, less water. It's gonna, because each mountain as it comes forward is darker and darker. So I want this one to go over this one. Come out into the ocean. And then it's going to be covered up by the next mountain too. Put some little rocks out there. And I want it to be just kind of soft here at the bottom of this. Whether it's splash or just, I don't know, just want to soften that bottom. Ease that out. So that's that one. Now what I'm going to do is put in this blue water, and that's Antwerp. It's the same color as the sky. I need to move my water over a little bit so that I don't drip on my painting. So this is, I'm just painting this dry, wet onto dry. Coming below that. I like that little bit of pink I put on very beginning is sort of coming through a little bit. Looks like my paper might be damaged. I have two little speckles, so who knows what those are going to become. Birds or something, maybe. Now the next mountain I'm going to put in is this one, this big one here. And I'm going to add a little bit of spray to it to try to make it look like water's rushing up on it. Again, this is the same two colors, French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I'm going to use even more pigment now. I want this really dark. If you want to cheat a little bit, you can use some sepia. Just put a little bit in there and darken it up pretty fast. It's always good to have more colors in though. I like that blue tint to it. Okay, so this is a big dark mountain that comes down in front here. Here I go, I'm gonna be brave. It's not going out the top, it's got like an inch above it, and I'm gonna just bring it in right there where I kind of left it. Here I go. Didn't mix up enough paint. That didn't go very far. Trying to make a nice shape to that cliff. And then this goes out past half. So each layer of mountain is darker and darker as it comes up, or it comes toward you. I guess I'm just going to make those little rocks right now, those damaged part of my paper. Those are too bright, so I'm going to soften them. And now I'm going to take my spray bottle and I'm going to spray up that. Well, it didn't really spray it up, but I'm going to lift now. So it feels like there's splash. It's really good when the spray does the lifting for it. Really looks like spray, but that's what I've got right now. Okay, so now the next step is to put in this set of rocks that are in front of the splash, which is there, that I'm pointing to on my big painting in here. So I'm going to paint in that next layer. And again, I want this nice and dark. And I want it to be different shape than the one I just made. So it's going to cover up some of the splash. I'm going to put more brown in that. Comes out into the water. And now I want to have some splash going up into that. I'm going to try a different spray bottle and see what happens. Not that that worked any better. It just sort of ran down. Well, you kind of get what you get.
I find this paper not very easy to work with.
Okay, the next step is that I'm going to get all this ocean in. I'm going to use a lot of French ultramarine blue into my Antwerp. I'm painting it dry, wet onto dry.
Here's your newspaper.
Thank you. Kind of filling it in where it's now the thing about painting water is that all your brush strokes need to be horizontal. And if you want to sort of make a splash, just sort of do a little lifting with the side of your brush. I'm just going to put some I left a little bit of white in some spots in my water. And I also added a couple brush strokes of the rock color. And I painted clear to the edges because it's an 8 by 10. I think I could even sign my name in this wet ocean spot. So I'm using my bamboo signer. Scratching into the wet paint. And the pigment is going down into the dented paper. Okay, there's 2 steps left. One is some rocks and one is the sailboat. My paper is very dry, just a tiny bit of dampness. And my rocks are the same color as those mountains in the back, which is French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna all mixed together. Some sepia if you want to get it dark fast. Now, for the rocks I'm putting in now, as opposed to these 3 that don't have any lightness to them, I'm going to try to get some rocks in here that stop at the white area so that it looks like there's a little bit of white at the bottom of these rocks. So if I have a little white spot, then I paint my rock in. It ends where the white is. I have 2, I need some overlap. So there's a rock that's in front of another rock. And then I'm going to lift with the side of my brush, get a little bit of splash at the bottom of the rocks, just like I did in the mountains above, the cliffs above. This rock's going right up the page. A little rock there. So the last step is to put in a sailboat. And what I did is I drew out a sailboat on a piece of 140-pound cold pressed paper, and then I cut it out with an X-Acto knife. I cut the sails out, and I'm going to place this. Originally, this was a mistake on my painting right here where I'm pointing, but that's where I want to put my sailboat. So I'm going to make that the bottom of my boat. And that's a good spot because I want it to go over these hills so that when I lift it, it looks like it's in front of those. And then I have to decide if I want to have it straight up or tilted. And I think an angle is better. So I'm going to tilt. This is not smack in the center of the painting, so I'm okay. I don't want to put my sailboat right in the center of the painting. And I'm going to tilt it so that it's tilting into the painting, not straight up and down, but tilted. And I have this brush. It's called a Fritz scrubber brush. You can use an old bristle brush from your oil paints. And now what I'm going to do is use super clean water. And this brush, I just dried it off, so this is just a damp bristle brush now. And I'm going to scrape, rub back and forth clean my brush, dry it. There's my kitty. Meow. Hi, kitty. Hi. Hi, kitty. That's my first grand kitty. My son brought that kitty home. Well, I guess Petrie was kind of my first kitty, but that was really Eleanor's cat. She was living here, now he's gone. But this one got left. Now I have wiped that out. And I'm gonna lift it, and we're gonna just have white sailboat. Just like that. But I misplaced it. I didn't get it right above my rock, so now I've got to make a really long boat, I think. Oh my gosh, I just made a big blob. A little bit damp from the rubbing, I think. I'm gonna put a dark line up like it's the mast. Even though it's not perfect, I think I have to stop because I'm gonna mess it up if I keep going. It's gonna make it worse. People often ask, when is it time to stop? And my pet answer is,
Yesterday.
no, it's right before the next brush stroke makes your painting worse. And that's a tricky thing to figure out, because are you going to make it better or are you going to mess it up? And you have to stop before you mess it up.
Nice.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at your ocean colors, just so beautiful. And I like the splash in the rocks, all the layers. Yeah. Are you going to add the sailboat later?
I don't know. This was just, this was a really nice kind of meditation to do. And what sold me on abandoning my assigned task.
Oh, yeah. You have a nice painting. I like your colors. I like the white area you left in the ocean. I like your splash up the rocks. I like that Marin headlands. Your sailboat's not that big. You brought it forward enough that it looks, I don't know, it doesn't look that big. And then you got a couple splotches in the sky. Are there a couple drops? Bird.
Yeah. It's pretty.
It's pretty, yeah.
And the sky I had a hard time with.
Yeah, this paper is hard to work with, but your colors are beautiful. And your signature's beautiful. I think, oh, pretty.
Nice.
Look at the sky. That's nice. And your
Yeah.
sailboat and your colors in your water. You did a good job on this paper. Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. I
And I
like
need
your Marin headlands.
Yeah, I need to do a little bit more with these rocks down here too. And then a little bit of swishing on my waves, I think.
Yeah. Your sky is gorgeous.
Mhm.
Yeah,
took
and I like
time
that glow in your mountains. You're gonna have, yeah, and get your boat
Yeah.
in, and you got it.
Well, I took time to cut a smaller sail. So
Mhm.
that was part of why I got behind.
I did a stencil with contact paper.
Oh, so you didn't lift,
Nope.
you kept it white.
Yep.
So you
I
did a resist.
Yeah.
Could you show yours again, please, Chris? Oh, yeah. Wow.
Looks great.
The sky is beautiful, yeah. And such good shape on the sails.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like
Wow.
that painting. Thanks,
All right,
everyone,
goodbye.
for joining us on YouTube to work on this difficult paper. We'll try it again next week.